waves of the North Sea are just prevalent over the dunes of the Circuit Zandvoort, but our drivers are hoping to avoid the same fate as we head to the aforementioned Circuit Zandvoort for round 7 of the Rampage Coffee Company Canadian E-Motorsports Network F1 All-Star Racing Series. It's the Dutch Grand Prix, again, from Circuit Zandvoort in the Netherlands. Hello everyone, Jordy Carraher here once again, bringing you play-by-play for tonight's race, and boy oh boy, we're getting close to the end here. And of course, we couldn't have done it without our friends at Rampage Coffee Company. Friendly reminder, rampagecoffee.com, 10% off your order with the code 519E-Racing. And certainly, things are getting tighter in the championships at this point, as Darcy Ford picked up his second win of the season last week at the rather chaotic Belgian Grand Prix, and that extends his overall lead. And as we'll see in a second, again, we'll take a peek at the driver standings here first. Ford leading by 24.5 points over Lewis Hamilton, 26 points over Jason Butler on the human driver side. And for Ford, it's a pretty good run of form for him here over the last couple races. Win at Canada as well. And again, that's 2 of the last 3 races, and that's good for January's Driver of the Month award for the number 64 AlphaTauri Red Bull driver. And as a result, that has lifted AlphaTauri into the lead in the constructors standings here as well. As you see, very tight at the top, just 3.5 points separating AlphaTauri and Alpine at the top, with Red Bull lurking in third. And this is the first time that we're getting a look at Circuit Zandvoort in the F1 series. Rather short track at about 4.25 kilometers, but as you'll see, there's a lot of elevation changes, very winding, and it all begins rather quickly with the Tarzan corner here, or Tarzanbocht as they call it in the Netherlands, Bocht being Dutch for corner. And then it's a quick little bend here into the Gerlach-Bocht, and now into the Hugenholz-Bocht, which is named after John Hugenholz, a former track director. And then a quick little bend into the Hunsrug, which is just a series of corners here into the Slotemaker. And now into Schevelak, which is a hard, fast, sweeping downhill right-hander. Got to get that right to get through the Master Bocht right-hander. And now into Turn 9, which is nameless at this point. And then you quickly sweep over to the right for the best entry into Turn 10. And now you get into the first of the 2 DRS zones here at Zandvoort. And it's a decent run up to the Hans Ernst corners. Hans Ernst, another former track director here of the CM.com Circuit Zandvoort. And now it's another short straight into the Kummelbach, the short right-hander. And now one of the defining turns here on the track, the final turn, the Ari Leyendyk Bocht, as you saw a lot of camber there, and it's going to be a very interesting challenge for our drivers here tonight. So let's not waste any more time. Let's take a peek at how everybody's doing so far, as we're already halfway through Q1 in this session, as once again this is being brought to you by Rampage Coffee Company. And our championship leader, Darcy Ford's at the top of the board right now, 112.785, his best time. A 10th up on Lewis Hamilton, Darcy Cudmore in third. His Red Bull teammate and the Dutchman, Max Verstappen, as we see Ivan Reynolds, who's currently 5th on the boards. Looks like he's spun out in that, I think that is the, right before Schevelak, right before he was about to take the downhill. The Slotemaker curve is what we'll say he got off in, or went off in, I should say. And Reynolds will try and recover it as he goes down to 6th, with Andy Hurdle moving up. Certainly, Hurdle would love it if a car decorated in orange and blue happened to take the checkered flag here tonight. And, well, we see Jared Ireland just popping right ahead of Hurdle here, who's now 5th. As a reminder to all of our viewers, in Q1 it's an 18-minute session. Of course, the pre-race show took us through about half of it. So how it'll go is the top 15 drivers will move on to Q2, which is a 15-minute session. And from there, the top 10 will move on to a third and final qualifying session of 12 minutes. Of course, the caveat is if you move into that top 10 shootout, the tire that you set your fastest lap on in the second qualifying session, that's what you start the race with. So a little bit of strategy to play with here, and certainly some options at this rather short track over the course of 36 laps. As we see Hurdle making his way into pit lane. And it looks like the only drivers who are out there right now are Jason Butler and Jared Ireland. So we'll go ahead and take a peek at Jason Butler here as we get our lap times officially enabled. Look like he set about a 25.2 through sector 1. Butler currently 4th. And just the 19 drivers tonight, as Ryan Gibson unable to go in the Aston Martin. And so we've got a yellow in sector 3. Not 100% sure what's going on there. I think it was just Ireland going into pit lane as we see Cody Cudmore crossing the line in 5th. So right now, as it stands, it would be 4 AI drivers getting eliminated. Pierre Gasly, George Russell, Kimi Räikkönen, and Nikita Mazepin as Butler takes that Lyondike turn very wide. And up into second is Butler, so the two championship rivals separated by less than a 1/10 of a second. Perhaps not a huge surprise at this point to see those two up near the top of the board. As we'll flip to Cody Cudmore in his Ferrari. Coming through Shevlac to begin sector 2. And it looks like Cody's got a good run out of there in the Ferrari. Now he'll come through into the DRS zone. Getting that rear wing opened up, or at least I thought he was going to. There it is. And a little over a second off the pace, closer to a 1.5 seconds. So we'll have to see if Cody's just going to charge this one up and go for one more, or if he's going to come in this time around. 5:15 left in the first qualifying session. And it looks like Cudmore is going to dip into pit lane. As it looks like Michael Dimitrov and Dan Cudmore are out on track now. We got a yellow in sector 2. Not sure if that's Butler or Dimitrov that had gotten off in that corner. I think that might have been Dimitrov, and indeed it was. Looks like Dimitrov just warming up those soft tires. He's 10th right now. But we'll have to see how much further he can drag that Williams up the board. As Butler dips into pit lane. We'll actually go down to the Alfa Romeo of Dan Cudmore first in 13th, because he's going to be starting his hot lap here first. And we'll just follow along right with him. Get it from his perspective as he comes through the Tarzan corner, basically third gear all the way around. Now shifting up through Gerlach. And then it's a bit of a... You can brake a little bit later going into Hugenholtz just because of the banking that's in that turn. But certainly you want to build up speed coming through this tight, twisty section. Now through Shevlac. Just sort of a light brake application before going into this middle part of the track. Just diving into turn 9 there is the Alfa Romeo, swinging it out to the right into turn 10. And again, we'll have to see if he gets the DRS opened up, and it looks like he's got it. And we'll have to see what he's able to put down. 51.3 through sector 2. Time looking pretty good to see if Dan will be able to move up the board here a little bit. Maybe just a hair wide going into that turn, but now through the Lyondike hard winding turn, you get a real sense of the braking as you come through. Now Cudmore down that long start finish straight, 113.769. He's up to 10th, just ahead of Dimitrov, who's basically right behind him on the track on a hot lap of his own. And he's through the Lyondike turn. And let's see what Dimitrov's able to pull off. He stays in 11th, 1 minute 13.879. And so the times are fairly tight, to be quite honest, from our human drivers in the series. 1 through 11, essentially, separated by about a second. So definitely a discrepancy in terms of what the human drivers are able to do as opposed to the AIs. as we go to Ivan Reynolds now in the Mercedes. 51.256 through 2 sectors. Let's see what he's got. And Reynolds moves up to 6th. So really good lap here from the Mercedes as he jumps up the board. And we'll have to see if Reynolds gives it another go. He's got a pretty good time going as he makes his way through the Hugenholz very nicely. Now through the Hunsrug into the Sludmaker where he had a bit of trouble earlier. And again, it's that hard winding right-hander known as Shivlak here at Zandvoort. Just a little bit of a run off the curb there. And nice line through turn 9 that'll allow him to sweep wide through 10. And let's see what the Mercedes is able to do. Looks like he's got a pretty good lap going here. 51.213. It looks like his fastest yet as he comes through the Hans Erst pair of turns here. Not really a chicane, but certainly a connected sequence as he comes through the Kumo. And looking good here as he gets into the Lion Dyke. Again, you really get a feel for that banking as he come through. And Reynolds, he's going to let go of the lap. I think he would have made it, and I think he may have gotten into the top 5 had he made it happen there. But again, he decided to go into pit lane, comfortable with the time clearly as we're down to 50 seconds remaining in the session. Looks like all the AIs are basically trying to get out for one more go. And all of the human drivers, yeah, it would appear they're all in pit lane. So let's go to the top AI driver who's on track right now in the form of 9th place Max Verstappen, the home driver, the Dutchman. And let's see what he's able to do. 50.3 through 2 sectors. This could be a pretty fast lap here for Verstappen. He is stuck behind Vettel, as you can see on track. And this will most likely be his last go around as we see the clock ticking down. And 5 seconds left. Leclerc moves up into 5th. And it looks like we'll have to officially confirm the times here in relatively short order. But again, everyone is through now. And it looks like everybody, all the human drivers anyway, will have advanced into the second qualifying session. And we'll just have to see here as we've got a countdown going, but nothing coming up on the screen itself. All right, our time has expired. I think we're on to Q2. But while we wait for Q2 to officially begin, we've got a bit of a surprise announcement for you for those who haven't been following along on social media. We've got something coming up, and again, here's a little teaser.
Rick Mears, the winner of the 63rd 500-mile race. Brian Hunter-Reay has his first Indianapolis 500-mile race win. Mario Franchitti becomes a 3-time winner of the Indianapolis 500. Flag for Bobby Unser. Mario Andretti, winner of the 19th. Simon Pagenaud swings up the lane. Cornelius Cole, winner of the 19th. Scott Dixon from New Zealand drives. Carlisle wins by tenths of a second. He will win the 100. For Tony Kanaan, the 12th time is the Julio Castroneves win. Indianapolis 500.
That was great. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I want to do that again so bad.
Just one of the greatest days of my life.
All is good in the world when you win this race.
That's right, folks. We are moving into IndyCars now, as we're going to have the Indy 250 coming up on March 15th. As you can see, we've got 28 drivers that are going to be invited, both from our Formula One and NASCAR series. And certainly some familiar faces all the way around. There you see a majority of the details. With the limits of Project Cars 2, which is the game that we'll be using for this, we'll have to do it in 2 separate races with limits of 14 per race, so ultimately 28 in total. And here's the reveal of the first 4 drivers. Certainly a different kind of specific classification or characteristic for these four. They've certainly had their fair share of successes throughout the Canadian E-Motorsports network. You see a couple of them tonight on track in the form of Darcy Ford and Michael Dimitrov. Joining them will be inaugural Formula One champion Corbin McCauley, as well as Jacob Nelson, the winner of our first ever regular season Canadian E-Motorsports Network race, that being the Holland College 250 back in 2020, as we're live once again. And again, we're very excited about all of this. We'll have more details as we get a little bit closer, but again, that was sort of a reveal of the first four of the drivers who we have on the go here for this year's Indy 250, as we follow along with our championship leader, Darcy Ford, beginning his first hot lap in Q2, which again is only 15 minutes in length, and runs 25.2 in Sector 1 as he comes through Shavelak to begin Sector 2. Again, Ford with a lead that's built up over the course of the last couple weeks. As Leclerc goes fastest, Verstappen immediately goes faster, as does Lewis Hamilton. 112.634 is the standard right now. And Ford comes through Sector 2, 50.723, as we got a yellow in Sector 1. But it looks like it's cleared up pretty quickly. And after a little bit of a wiggle, I think we're going to see Darcy Ford maybe give it one more go, as we see Verstappen's picked up a 5-place grid penalty, as has Charles Leclerc. And Dimitrov's out of the session as Darcy Ford moves up to second with a 113.044. But I think this will be the keeper here for the AlphaTauri. And yeah, Dimitrov's out, and it looks like, unfortunately, yeah, he won't be able to put up another time. So that 114.057 already 11th, and that is going to eliminate him from the top 10 Q3 session. Of course, the advantage that gives him is that it'll let him have his free choice of tire to start the race outside the top 10. And let's just see who's coming through next. Next driver might be, no, it's not Jason Butler, but certainly we've got plenty of orange on the track. Looks like it's Ricardo coming through first. Let's try and track down some humans here, shall we? And we've got one in the form of Darcy Cudmore, but that looks like it's going to be an in-lap for him. He's fifth on the board right now, 1 minute 13.294. And let's see what everybody's doing tire-wise here. Looks like everyone who's set a lap has done so on softs to this point. Dan Cudmore, Jared Ireland, and Cody Cudmore yet to set a time, although Cody and Dan are both on their out laps now. And they're both opting for the mediums to begin. So we will just have to see how things shake out. And it looks like Andy Hurdle's just moved up into fifth with a time of 1 minute 13.288 as he swings around the Tarzan corner. No need for vines, just a powerful, powerful car. And certainly the Zandvoort track, as one of the newer tracks here in Formula One, or returning to Formula One, I should say. Certainly a lot of charm to it, a bit of an old school feel to it, if you will. And certainly, you know, a lot of interesting information to consider for this track as well. And that opening turn, the Tarzan corner that I was talking about, it's got a little bit of an interesting history to it as well, as it's reportedly named after a local character, and he earned the name Tarzan from some of his fellow people in the Zandvoort community. And originally when the track was constructed, he wasn't going to allow his land to be built on, as I guess he lived close to the circuit. And he had a vegetable garden right in the area, and he decided that he would only give up the vegetable garden if the track's designers named a nearby corner after him. So there you go, the Tarzan corner. And it's ultimately probably the most famous turn at the Zandvoort circuit, outside of maybe the Lyondike turn, but even the Tarzan is probably the best area for overtaking with the wide radius and the big banking that you see. So look out for some action at the Tarzan corner, particularly as that's the end of a DRS straight as well. So if you're looking for things to happen, that's probably a spot to find it. Speaking of making things happen, Cody Cudmore trying to make something happen as he comes through the Lyondike corner onto the start-finish straight and crosses the line in 1 minute 13.946. That's good for 12th right now, as Dan Cudmore following behind him sets a 114.420. That's the lowest of our drivers to this point, the lowest time. And as Jared Ireland is beginning his outlap, we'll check on him in a little bit, but for now, let's head to Jason Butler as he's coming to the end of Sector 1. And Butler sets a time of 25.323, his fastest, and it looks like he's got purple in the sector, meaning fastest of everyone. And he's about a half second back of Lewis Hamilton's top time of 1 minute 12.634. Hamilton the only one in the 112s in Q2 to this point. And we'll just stay with Butler for the rest of the lap as he comes into the Hans Erst corners or sequence or whatever you want to call it. And it looks like he's navigated that rather smoothly. And now coming into the last couple corners, takes that one nice and tight in there to the right. And now through that Lyondike turn, it is flat out from here down the start-finish straight. What's Butler got? He's got himself into the 112s. That's what he's got, 112.9 flat. And that's good for second. And a great lap there from the Alpine. As we got a yellow in Sector 1, I think it might be, it's either Butler or Dan Cudmore who's out of fuel. But now, again, we get our first look at Jared Ireland in the Haas. Certainly he's done a lot with that Haas over the course of the year. And he's a prime example that, in terms of equipment, it's what you do with what you got. As we'll take a look at his setup here really quick as he comes through the final couple corners. You see the wheels, a Logitech G29 43-inch monitor with a GT Racing Speed Series seat. And that time of 1 minute 15.611, that is the slowest of our runners in Q2 to this point. 5.5 minutes left in the session. But Ireland certainly a guy who can find speed in a number of different parts of the track. And a guy who's looking to replicate that, I thought was going to be Cody Cudmore, currently 9th. But he bails into pit lane. May have to opt for soft tires for a little bit more security out there. And so as he goes into pit lane, we'll check in on Darcy Cudmore running a little bit wide after getting the fastest first sector of all. And certainly he would have lost some time coming through the slipmaker section. And yeah, it looks like he'll be about a second or two off here to this point. Maybe more, as I think just going a little bit wide effectively did his lap in, so to speak. So we'll check in on the McLaren of Andy Hurdle as he begins a flying lap here now on fresh soft tires. Best time to this point, 1 minute 13.288 seconds, as we see Ireland move up the board, only to 11th though. But again, it's notable in that he's the only one who's on the medium tires right now. We'll see if he opts for softs or if he decides he's gonna just kind of keep it there and maybe run a little bit longer. Because as it stands right now, everyone ahead of him will be starting on soft tires. So ultimately, in terms of durability, that could give Ireland a bit of an advantage here. As we go right back to Hurdle on track, let's see how he's doing as he gets into the DRS straight. And 50.997, this is looking like a promising lap here for Andy Hurdle. 3.5 tenths up on his best to this point. As now he winds through that Kumo right-hander, and now it's into that long, sweeping Lyondike right-hander, and again, full throttle from here. Hurdle to the line, 1 minute 13.016. He's up in a fourth. With a little bit more security now, as he's got about 0.7 of a second between himself and 11th place Jared Ireland on track. And it looks like we got a couple of guys going on outlaps here now. Darcy Ford, Ivan Reynolds, and Dan Cudmore. And it looks like the Alfa Romeo is going to get to the line first out of those three, so we'll check on him. Cudmore in 14th right now, 1 minute 13.896. He's going to give it another go, as we got a yellow in Sector 3, but that's all cleared up now. Yellow in Sector 2, perhaps Hurdle and Reynolds getting themselves a little bit over-acquainted with one another, perhaps. As Cudmore goes through the Hugenholtz and now through the Hunsrug, or Hunsridge in English. Cudmore through Sector 1, 25.3. That's his fastest Sector 1 to this point. Quarter of a second up. But he will need a little bit more time than that if he wants to buy himself a little bit more security. And coming through Shivlak, it looks like he handled that, or I guess I'm a little bit off there. That's turns 9 and 10. Cudmore getting through the lap a little bit quicker than maybe my eyes were watching. 51.068, half a second better than his best lap to this point. And taking a nice wide berth out of the Hans Erst. Now through that Kumo corner. A little bit of a wobble, but it looks like he's got it all straightened out into the Lyondike. DRS wide open. Cudmore to the line, and he moves up into 9th. 1 minute 13.428 is the time. Now, to Darcy Ford in 5th. He's coming around the Lyondike. Down the start, finish straight. Into 2nd, 1 minute 12.650. Just a couple hundredths off of Lewis Hamilton. Ivan Reynolds now. Reynolds in 8th. And it looks like he lost a little bit of time in Sector 2. He'll have a little bit more time to go for it, I think, unless this lap happens to pan out for him. And Dan Cudmore, the man on the bubble right now. As it stands, it would be Alonso, Ireland, Gasly, Ricciardo, and Dimitrov to be eliminated, as Reynolds rides up to the line. 1 minute 14.719. He remains in 8th with 45 seconds left to go in the session. Reynolds looking to get to his second Q3 of the season. And we'll keep an eye on him to see what happens. We got a few drivers certainly behind him looking to put in laps. And we'll see if Cody Cudmore gets around in time to begin another lap. He might be the last to be able to, as we've got about 15 seconds left in the session. And as a reminder to those unfamiliar, you got to get to that start-finish line before the clock hits 0 for your lap to count. And Cody's done that, so he'll have one last go at it. As again, our clock has hit 000 now. And again, that danger zone, now as we see Alonso picking up a 5-place grid penalty for a collision. The AlphaTauri of Darcy Ford comes in. He's through into 2nd, as it looks like we got a bit of a log jam here in Sector 1. Not 100% sure what's going on there. Hamilton picks up a 5-place grid penalty. But again, we'll stay with Cody Cudmore here as he tries to improve on his time, as it looks like both Ireland and Dimitrov will be eliminated here in Q2. In fact, they will be, as they're retired from this session and aren't in the top 10. Dan Cudmore holding on to that final spot in the top 10. Ricciardo misses, so it's down to either Alonso or Gasly to knock Dan Cudmore out. And we'll see if Cody Cudmore is able to improve on his time, but he appears to be content as he ducks into pit lane. And it appears he's through to Q3. Gasly pitting as well. Alonso with the only shot at it, and he may pit as well. And indeed he has, so that confirms your top 10. Hamilton, Ford, Verstappen, Darcy Cudmore, Jason Butler, Andy Hurdle, Charles Leclerc, Ivan Reynolds, Cody Cudmore, and Dan Cudmore. So again, that's your top 10, 2 Mercedes, 2 Ferraris, and it looks like we've got two Mercedes, 2 Ferrari, 2 Red Bulls, and 1 from 4 of the other teams as well. We'll officially confirm it once we see the board. And again, there's your top 10. You got, again, your 2 Mercedes, 2 Red Bull, 2 Ferrari, a McLaren, an Alpine, an Alpha Tauri, and Alfa Romeo. Of course, that's the other one in the top 10. And again, that is your order. Hamilton, Ford, Verstappen, Darcy Cudmore, Jason Butler, Andy Hurdle, Charles Leclerc, Ivan Reynolds, Cody Cudmore, Dan Cudmore. Top 10 beginning in a matter of moments. Let's go. And again, Q3, only 12 minutes, so only a couple of shots at it here. As based on the fuel loads, it looks like drivers can get 2 hot laps out of a run before they have to come in again. And it's basically just all out from here. Things looking pretty dry out there right now. And let's just see who's going to come out first. It looks like it's going to be Leclerc, followed by Hamilton and Verstappen. And of course, that'll be the 3 remaining AI drivers that we've got in the top 10. The rest, all human drivers. And it looks like Darcy Cudmore is going to be the first of the humans to go out. Ivan Reynolds following. And so, we will go ahead and get on board with Darcy Cudmore here in his number 75 Red Bull, driver of the month from December. Certainly a guy who knows how to qualify well. The race results haven't necessarily translated. And again, Darcy Cudmore just getting a feel for the track here on the outlap on those soft tires. Getting them warm as per usual. And again, just a little bit of a shorter session here in this final qualifying run at 12 minutes. And you don't realize just how quickly that time goes until you're actually in the heat of the moment, as it looks like we've only got 9 drivers here. It looks like Dan Cudmore is just going to bow out in 10th. Not 100% sure what's gone on there. We'll have to see if there's an explanation here, but now we've got Darcy Cudmore out on a hot lap, so we'll go ahead and follow it from his perspective. As we get onto the proper camera. Looking like he's making a nice run through Gerlach and now into Hugenholtz. Nice exit out of Hugenholtz. Again, a bit of a tighter turn, and this is a very tight section that's run very, very fast. 25.150. Nice opening sector here from Darcy Cudmore in the Red Bull. Now it's basically just holding on through turns 9 and 10. Again, the laps, they go fast here at Zandvoort. Not unlike Austria a couple weeks ago, but certainly a bit more of a roller coaster feel than even that track had. Now into the stadium section through the Hans Urs corners as Hamilton sets the fastest time. Verstappen immediately beats it. 1 minute 12.254 is the standard right now. We'll see what Darcy Cudmore's got here as he comes out of the Lion Dyke. Now onto the start-finish straight. Darcy Cudmore into 4th. 1 minute 13.157 is the time. As it looks like Ivan Reynolds will be next to come through. Reynolds across the line, and shows him his 8th, but we only see 5 times on the board. So there we go, in 5th. 1 minute 14.052 in the Mercedes. As we'll go ahead and check on Andy Hurdle now. He'll be next across the line for his first lap in this final qualifying session. Hurdle across the line, and he's in a fifth, 1:13.167. 0.03 of a second separating third from fifth, but a clear separation for Verstappen and Hamilton to this point. As it looks like, stand corrected, it looks like it's the 3 AIs coming into pit lane right away. So, it'll be Jason Butler coming through next, and it doesn't look like this lap will be the one to do it for him, so we'll go back to Darcy Ford. As he winds his way around that Lyondike hard, long right-hander. Ford to the line, and he's sixth, 1:13.475. Cody Cudmore crossing the line and going into pit lane. So, Cody Cudmore, the only one not to post a time in Q3 as of yet, but still plenty of time, 7:25 to go. And let's just see, it looks like Hurdle's already around again. Maybe a little bit off the pace he'd previously set. And it looks like he'll be coming into pit lane here, and indeed he does. Duck down to the right. And so next on the track will be Jason Butler, who's currently in 8th, 1:16.333 the time. And he's through sector 2 in 50.560, so he's already up 3 seconds basically on his previous best. And let's see how he navigates that Alpine. Again, you know he'd love to try and grab a couple of qualifying points off of Darcy Ford. Here as he gets to the line, Butler up into third. And the first of the human drivers into the 112s. Let's see how Darcy Ford responds. He goes into third, 1:12.673. We just caught the tail end of it. And so the championship rivals looking like they'll be row 2 on the grid, although I believe Verstappen and Hamilton both have grid penalties coming to them. So this could be our front row here, Ford and Butler, as we'll get onto the track here with Reynolds. And Reynolds currently running in 8th, but this certainly won't be the lap. I think he'll be able to give it one more go. But instead he's going to duck into pit lane. And so that leaves, again, Ford and Butler out on track. Not sure if either of them are on a hot lap here right now. Darcy Ford's opening sector looked good. Lost a little bit of time in sector 2. And Ford being ahead of Butler on track, that would suggest that this is an in lap for the Alpine. And we'll see if Ford's able to improve on his time here. Running high, and he's going to duck into pit lane here as well. So I think we're looking at basically one more go for everybody else, just kind of final configurations here as we get down to 5 minutes remaining in this final qualifying session. And so we'll check in on the one driver who hasn't posted a time just yet, and that'll be Cody Cudmore in the Ferrari. And let's watch it from his perspective. He's going to have Hurdle coming out of pit lane basically right next to him on an out lap, but Cody Cudmore will get through with relatively little impediment. And taking a nice line here through Hugenholtz, maintaining momentum. Climbing up the Hunsrück now. Again, this kind of winding section is taken very quickly over the Slotemaker into Schivlak. 25.288, a good opening sector here from the Ferrari. And a little bit of a ride over that curb out of the master corner. Now swing it right into turn 10, hard left now. And that DRS should be pretty wide open here for the Ferrari. And let's see what he's got through 2 sectors, 50.727. This could be a good lap here. And just a little bit of maybe a misfire there in the stadium section, but we'll have to see. Final couple corners, again, the hard banking of the Lyondike. He'll be able to build up a bit of speed here. Cody Cudmore coming down the start-finish straight into 4th. And my sincere apologies for the slight coughing fit there that you heard at the very end. As we're coming down to 3 minutes and 10 seconds left in Q3. Some of the speed here can leave you a bit breathless, as obviously you heard just a moment ago. Now, back on track here, Andy Hurdle looks like he's going to be next to post a semi-hot lap, but it looks like Cody Cudmore might have beached it here in turn 9. Certainly was pointing in the wrong direction when we had a look, and there's a yellow in sector 2. And it is indeed from the Ferrari. So not quite sure if Cody Cudmore just got it all wrong there through turn 9 or what happened. We just saw him pointed the wrong way. And so Hurdle, he'll just kind of build up here for one more big lap. Meanwhile, ahead of him on track, Darcy Cudmore will be doing the same thing, as this lap won't move him up the board from 7th. And so we'll stay with the Red Bull as he makes his way around. That long winding Tarzan corner to begin the lap. As Cody Cudmore's got it all righted here now and into pit lane. He's got about $1.50 if he wants to set another lap, but he's currently 4th right now as he watches brother Darcy on track. And he sees Darcy Cudmore set a 25.168 in sector 1. And again, we'll just follow the Red Bull around the track here as we're coming down to 1.5 minutes left in this final qualifying session. Let's see if Darcy's able to make up a little bit of time. And he's got that DRS rear wing wide open, 50.134, 0.7 up on his best time to this point. This could be a very promising lap for the Red Bull if he's able to hang on. Cudmore into the last couple corners. Through the Kumo, nice and wide into the Lion Dyke. And again, that heavy camber, that big banking through the start finish straight. Darcy Cudmore up into 2nd. 1 minute 12.390. Great lap from Darcy. And that'll be certainly one that he's content with. Right now it'd be provisional front row for him if he's able to hold that. Meanwhile, Ivan Reynolds looking to get one more lap in here by the looks of things. This lap won't do it if he wants to move up the board. He's currently 9th. And a nice little background soundtrack from Jared Ireland. I think he's got the party chat on by the looks of things on the screen, as Reynolds makes it through the Hugenholtz. And we'll see if Reynolds is able to make the climb up the board. Here's Verstappen, goes even faster. 112.242, but Hamilton beats it, 112.053. We'll see if Darcy Ford's got an answer. This will be his last go at it. And this lap won't do it for him as Ford's going to duck into pit lane. So that'll be the end of his qualifying session. Let's see what Hurdle does. And it looks like he's going to back off as well. Darcy Cudmore doing the same. And based on penalties, I think Darcy Cudmore might be starting from pole position once everything gets sorted out. But we'll have to see. I think Leclerc might have one more shot. It's Leclerc and Reynolds at this point, but Reynolds has ducked into pit lane. And I'm not sure if Leclerc got the lap started in time or not. I think he just might have, but he might pull into pit lane here instead. We'll just have to see. And Leclerc ducks into pit lane, which leaves Hamilton and Verstappen to come into pit lane behind. And so, again, we'll have to see how everything sorts out from a penalty perspective, but from the human driver perspective, it looks like Darcy Cudmore will be starting in the top spot. And hopefully we're not having a communication issue, but I think we're all good to go. So, again, there you see the fastest times over the course of that Q3. Again, I thought there were some grid penalties to be applied, but they might be applied after the fact. We'll have to see how everything shakes out once everybody actually gets on the grid. But again, human drivers, Darcy Cudmore with the fastest lap, 1:12.390. Jason Butler, 1:12.602. He's got Darcy Ford right behind him,
7 times,
1 minute 12.673. And so, as we head into Q3, or no, we're heading out of Q3. We're just about to head to the formation lap as things get all loaded up. So the drivers have about 30 seconds to finalize their tire strategy from here, as much as anything else. I've been hearing reports that we could be looking at a relatively wet finish to tonight's race, but we'll have to confirm that. And let's just see here, the countdown is beginning, as you can see. Down to 20 seconds now. And again, this is just kind of final changes here for the drivers. Looks like we've got Jason Butler on the front row. If you take a peek on the far right, you got to kind of squint to see it. But that sure looks like an Alpine on the front row with a Red Bull to keep him company. So it will be Darcy Cudmore leading them off the line. And as this formation lap goes, as we always do, we'll go ahead and pay homage to this week's host nation, and we will bring you the national anthem of the Netherlands. So we're just about set to go here. Formation lap just about at a close, but there is certainly a separation within the pack, it has to be said. And I would say the game is just about taken over Darcy Cudmore's car, Jason Butler as well. Just to make sure everybody gets through the formation lap in relatively decent order. And we're going to have 36 laps of what I'm going to assume is going to be pretty much mayhem here at Circuit Zandvoort tonight. As you see the grid starting to form up. And it's going to be a relatively short dash into that Tarzan corner, so if you're going to see any kind of chaos like we saw at La Source in Belgium last week, this could be yet another candidate for it. As it looks like our 19 drivers are lined up. And basically just waiting for the lights now. And so here we go, 36 laps at Zandvoort. Tonight's Dutch Grand Prix presented by Rampage Coffee Company, as we got 5 lights. And it's lights out and away we go. Looks like Cudmore's gotten a good start off the line. Butler off to a good start as well. Ford maybe a little bit slow into Tarzan, but he's able to get around Butler on the outside. And so Darcy Cudmore looks like he's gotten off to a good start. He'll have Darcy Ford chasing him down in relatively short order. That Red Bull looking really good off the line, as you can see a couple of predicted pit stop strategies from the game. The majority of our field will be starting on the soft tires here tonight. As a matter of fact, we'll be able to confirm that. And indeed, you see the majority of the field on the softs. Cody Cudmore notably in 5th on the mediums. Then you have to go down to Gasly in 11th on the hard tires. Ireland starting on the mediums in 13th. But it looks like he's had something go wrong here, as he's fallen down the field. Not 100% sure what's gone on there. But the Haas is at the back of the pack. But at the front of the pack here is Darcy Cudmore. And looking pretty comfortable there as he's opened up almost a 2-second lead on Darcy Ford just on this opening lap. And notably for Darcy Cudmore, if he can keep it outside that 1-second range, he'll be able to keep Darcy Ford at bay, because you got to be within 1 second to use that drag reduction system on the start-finish straight. As Ireland picks up a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and Jason Butler's out. Oh boy, virtual safety car here now. Not 100% sure what happened to the Alpine. It looks like he may have gotten hooked up into the Hugenholtz, as Reynolds picks up a 5-second penalty for a collision with Ricardo. And we do have a bit of chaos here in the early going, as Darcy Cudmore runs wide, and that's going to let Darcy Ford sneak right up. And speaking of Darcy Ford, he is basically in the catbird seat here now, as his main championship rival out on lap 1. Ricardo now with a 5-second penalty for ignoring the yellow flag. Of course, we are under VSC conditions right now. Speed limited by either 30 or 40% depending on the track. As again, you get another look at the pit stop predictions. Darcy Cudmore leading this one by just over 2 seconds right now. Under normal conditions, lap 3 is when the DRS would initially be enabled. And let's just see here. Hamilton right on the back of Darcy Ford, and now DRS will be enabled. Hamilton right on the back, battle for second and third. And so Ford might have to do a bit of defending here in the early going. As now we'll go down the field just a little bit to find the battle for 5th and 6th. Max Verstappen just passing Andy Hurdle, and Hurdle's got his McLaren teammate Daniel Ricciardo right on his back as well. And Verstappen just charging through the field here in the early going. He started 11th on account of a couple of penalties that he picked up, but again is surging through the field and up into the top 5, and trying to track down Cody Cudmore just ahead of him in 4th. Meanwhile, Hurdle trying to hold on to 6th. We'll check in on that battle for 4th place here. Cody Cudmore and Max Verstappen. The Ferrari holding on for now, but they're coming up onto a DRS straight away. That start-finish straight. And Verstappen looking close enough. This could just be academic as we go into lap 4. As Darcy Cudmore sets the fastest lap, Darcy Ford immediately beats it. But Darcy Cudmore holding that 2-second lead right now. And Cudmore holding off Verstappen for 4th. So good job defending from the Ferrari. Verstappen not quite close enough even with the benefit of the DRS. Now into the Hugenholtz. Cody holds on. Some pretty good battles here in the early going. Not a whole lot of overtaking opportunity here once we get into race conditions at Zandvoort, as we got a yellow on sector 3. And it looks like a Haas might be hobbling here, as that looks like it's Jared Ireland who might be having some issues here tonight. Certainly not his finest hour in the Haas to this point, but if there's anyone who can make a recovery drive, it's often this man that you're seeing right here. And he's onto the medium tires here now. Matter of fact, again, the early collision might have been just to repair some damage, because he did come into pit lane after that first lap. As we'll go back up the field here, Dan Cudmore trying to track down Charles Leclerc for 9th, as Darcy Cudmore, Darcy Ford, then Lewis Hamilton, they all go fastest lap, fastest lap, fastest lap, as we see a spinner. That's Dan Cudmore. And that's a spin out of that Lyondike right-hander. Just couldn't hold it. Luckily for Dan, he's right next to pit lane, so he'll immediately come in. But oh boy, that is going to ruin his race, basically. And I wouldn't be surprised. Indeed, it is the white hard tire, so 31 laps. Let's see if he can go to the end on them. We'll keep an eye on that situation as the race progresses. Meanwhile, let's go up the field here a little bit, where we'll find Michael Dimitrov in 15th, trying to track down his teammate George Russell. Two Williams drivers a little bit off the pace so far in the race itself. Meanwhile, Dimitrov also trying to hold off Kimi Räikkönen behind him. And they're coming into a DRS zone here, so Räikkönen will have the speed advantage, but not quite enough ground for Räikkönen to make it up on Dimitrov as Darcy Ford sets the fastest lap of the race, 1:15.357. As we'll go back up to the head of the field here. Back to that battle for second between Ford and Hamilton as they both try to track down the race leader, Darcy Cudmore. But again, for Darcy Ford, this is basically bonus points right now with, again, his main title rival, Jason Butler, out on lap 1. Certainly not the night the Alpine driver was hoping to have. And now Ford just trying to keep her on track, eventually trying to reel in Darcy Cudmore. But again, we'll have to see what happens or what becomes of that. 1.5 seconds, roughly the gap between the two Darcys on track right now. Cudmore leading Ford. And also trying to defend Hamilton at the same time. So an admirable effort here from the AlphaTauri, it has to be said. And winding up through that Lion Dyke corner is Ford, getting closer to Darcy Cudmore. Gap down to 1.1 seconds. Top three separated by less than 2 seconds right now as we're on to lap 7. Again, they're ticking away quickly here as we got a yellow in sector 3. But it looks like any issue that would have happened has been cleared up, but it's carried on into sector 1. And it looks like we've lost an Aston Martin. I think Vettel's out in the Tarzan corner. So that's another retirement here tonight. And both of the Aston Martins not faring very well. Of course, Ryan Gibson unavailable to compete tonight. So Vettel the lone Aston Martin, and he's now out on lap 7. So that's 2 retirements in the race, 17 runners remaining on lap 7. And there you see the gap between the top 3 on the board. It's just over a second at this point. Darcy Ford will have DRS, and that'll give Hamilton even more DRS, so things could get hairy here in the next lap or 2 at the head of the field. As we got a yellow in sectors 1 and 3. Looks like a Mercedes might be off. I think that might be Ivan Reynolds. As he continues his plunge down the board, I think he might have gotten it wrong at the entrance to the Lion Dyke turn. And he's going to go into pit lane. Again, Vettel now out. Reynolds being careful, of course, to obey the pit speed limits. As we'll bring it back to the head of the field, we got the 2 Darcys battling. Less than half a second separating those 2, with Hamilton lurking just behind. And now into the DRS zone, both Ford and Hamilton will have it available. But again, Darcy Cudmore looking fairly comfortable in the lead right now as they come through that Hans Erst or Stadium section. And again, those 3 basically just stacked right on top of each other here. This has the potential to get very, very exciting here on this start-finish straight. Out of the Lion Dyke corner they go. Ford's right there. Here he goes, trying to make the move. And he'll have the inside line going into Tarzan, and there it is. Darcy Ford, your new leader on lap 9. Now, Darcy Cudmore trying to hold off Hamilton to maintain second. And coming through the Hugenholtz, it looks like Cudmore's holding on for now. But again, this is a very fast and technical part of the track they're coming through. So even the slightest mistake could give Hamilton an opening to get up into second. But again, Darcy Ford has gotten into the lead, and he's building up that lead pretty quickly. It's up to 1.4 seconds already. And that's just over the course of half a lap. It's going to be a battle between Cudmore and Hamilton in that DRS zone. Darcy Cudmore holding on for the time being. Not a whole lot of room there in that DRS zone. Oh, it looks like we got some rain now, folks. Here we go. Things are going to get even more interesting now. There you see the raindrops. And who's going to chance it? Who's going to go for it a little bit longer? Who's going to come in right away? None of the top three are. As Cudmore is going to hold on to second here against Hamilton. Meanwhile, Darcy Ford pulling away now. That lead up to 3 seconds. Able to hold his tires in that light rain just a little bit better than the Red Bull right now. And speaking of the Red Bull, oh, Hamilton's out. Hamilton. Looks like Hamilton's into the wall. And that's going to be the end of Lewis Hamilton's night. As we got a yellow in Sector 2. Some wheel-to-wheel battling there between Cudmore and Hamilton. Perhaps not unexpectedly, the Duck comes out on top in the wet conditions. Hamilton out, and we've got ourselves a safety car, and Reynolds disqualified. So just like that, the two Mercedes, well, I think it might have actually been Reynolds that got tied up. We certainly saw Hamilton go sideways. He's just down into 6th. I thought he was out, but Reynolds winds up losing it. Again, safety car in the wet conditions. I would expect some pit stops right about now. We're going to go ahead and take a pit stop and hear from our friend Chuck Norris, which we didn't get to do in the qualifying session. I'm going to get some water. I'm going to calm down, and we'll be back.
Hi, Rampagers. Lauren, Dustin, and I want to thank you for your support during these tough times. Thank you for your amazing loyalty and keeping the company flowing. All the best, your friend, Chuck Norris.
And as things get a little more wet, we've seen another retirement here in the form of Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren. Meanwhile, Michael Dimitrov picked up a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So that's 4 drivers out of this race here on lap 11. As the elements have decided they're going to wreak a little bit of havoc on this one. And we've seen the majority of the remaining runners. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it's all of them. All with the exception of Jared Ireland right now. And even he's gone on to the mediums. George Russell now the lone driver who's not on a wet compound of some sort, as he's on the hards, but I wouldn't be surprised if next lap Russell comes in from 8th to get the proper fit on. And again, safety car conditions now at the Zandvoort circuit rapidly deteriorating condition-wise. Darcy Ford continuing to lead. Darcy Cudmore in 2nd, Max Verstappen 3rd. Cody Cudmore 4th, Andy Hurdle rounds out the top 5 in the McLaren. And we'll go probably another 2 laps here on the safety car, to be quite honest, as we've begun lap 12. And again, we've got plenty of separation throughout the field as it stands right now, so once they all get bunched up, it'll all kind of sort itself out, as Russell has indeed pitted. He'll go on to the intermediate tire, I would think. As I'm not sure if it's full wet conditions out there just yet, and indeed it is intermediate, which is what all the drivers are running right now. So we had an inkling that this might happen, and indeed it has. As again, we've already got 4 retirements early in this race, 2 human, 2 AI. But it's 2 humans leading the pack right now, Darcy Ford and Darcy Cudmore, as the safety car leads them around the track. And again, things kind of slowing down a little bit as we got a few stragglers trying to get to the back of the pack. Russell just off the tail right now, as are Ireland and Dan Cudmore, 14th and 15th respectively. And as I say, it'll probably be roughly, I would say, one more lap after this one before the safety car goes in and we can get back to racing. Important distinction: in wet conditions, the DRS will not be available, so any overtaking, it's got to be purely on driver skill. And with Zandvoort being a hard track to overtake on as it is, Darcy Ford, if he keeps it on the road, he's got to be feeling pretty good. Now on to lap 13. Again, that safety car leading the field around. And again, it looks like the majority of the field is together. Ireland nearly at the back of that line. And Dan Cudmore in a pit lane by the looks of things. Is he going full wet here? Let's just see. He is going full wet, so that could be an interesting choice here for the Alfa Romeo. Basically nothing to lose at the back of the field right now. If he goes on full wets and the conditions just get worse, this could be the kind of strategic play that helps the Alfa Romeo out. Only question now, of course, is whether or not the safety car will be out for yet one more lap, with the field not quite together. But we still got a few corners to sort that out. Of course, the Alfa Romeo won't get to the tail of that line quite in time for that, but we'll just have to see. No notifications from, well, there it is, race control, safety car in this lap. Just as I was about to say we hadn't seen anything yet, there you go. Safety car in this lap, about as we expected, roughly 3 laps for a safety car period in this F1 2021 game that we use. And Darcy Ford letting the safety car take off here as they round the final couple corners, definitely getting a wider berth, and that'll be important just for visibility as much as anything else. Ford rounds the Lyondike turn, and we are back underway. It's back to green flag racing now. Ford leading the way as we begin lap 14. Darcy Cudmore right there on the back. Verstappen maybe having a look on the inside. And indeed he does. Verstappen up into second. Ford still leading as they get into the Hugenholtz. Verstappen might try and squeeze in right about here. Ford going wide. They're going wheel to wheel in the wet conditions. Verstappen ahead. And it's the Flying Dutchman, well, the new generation of the Flying Dutchman, up into the lead here now. Ford into second as we got a yellow in sector 2. Let's see, are we having anyone left behind? No, not just yet. And so, again, it's Verstappen in the Red Bull in the lead. Darcy Ford in second in his Alpha Tauri. Darcy Cudmore third in the other Red Bull. Cody Cudmore fourth. Lewis Hamilton rounds out the top 5. And again, as I mentioned before, wet conditions means no DRS. So, again, any overtaking, as we just see Lewis Hamilton doing so on Cody Cudmore for 4th, that's done on pure skill, ladies and gentlemen, in these conditions. And speaking of pure skill, Verstappen pulling away from the field on the intermediate tires. He's got that lead up to 4 seconds in the matter of half a lap. As we're on to lap 15 now. And we'll watch it from Darcy Cudmore's perspective. He's half a second back of Darcy Ford for second. Trying to hold off Hamilton now into Hugenholtz. This is where Verstappen made the move on Ford to get into the lead. Cudmore holds on for now. And there you see it's just coming down here at Zandvoort. First wet conditions we've had over the course of this season, as we got a yellow in sectors 1 and 2, but that's cleared itself up in relatively short order. again, Cudmore trying to get to the back of Ford here, but of course, even in virtual settings, that spray will kick up a little bit more the closer the Red Bull gets to the back of the AlphaTauri. And Verstappen's basically just driving away with this one in these conditions, lead up to 6 seconds already. And that's in a lap and a half as we've got somebody off. In Sector 2, that is, let's just see. Well, we just saw Hamilton go by Darcy Cudmore for third. And is that Dimitrov who we saw off? I think it was. As he's down to 14th. Dan Cudmore trying to get to the back of him. And things kind of getting a little bit procedural here now, it has to be said, under these wet conditions. As mentioned before, some limited overtaking opportunities as it is. And that's just in the dry conditions. Put a little bit of rain out there. Oh boy, it gets slick. Meanwhile, speaking of slick, let's go up the field. Get our first look, or another look here at Jared Ireland going wheel to wheel with Andy Hurdle. Oh, that's brave. And will he be allowed to hold on to that position? I thought he went off the track. But coming through Shevlak, it looks like Ireland's going to be able to hold the position for now. Hurdle down 8th as Leclerc got through as well. But, as I said, if there's anyone who's going to have a recovery drive, certainly aided by the safety car in this case, but if anyone can recover, Jared Ireland would be the guy, and he's proven to do that once again. As he's up into 6th, as we're getting word here that, well, from Jason Butler's, we got a bit of an update from that lap 1 or lap 2 incident that put Butler out. It turned out that it was Hamilton who took Butler out, so not exactly friendly fire between the two championship rivals, one AI and one human. And machine triumphed over man in that case as we're on to lap 17. Gap at the head of the field is up to almost 8 seconds now. Verstappen still driving away from the field, though the gaps have certainly gone down. But again, it's the Red Bull on home turf in his home country, even in a virtual sense, just kind of driving away from the rest of the field. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton trying to track down Darcy Ford for second. Gap about 1/3 of a second between those two, with Darcy Cudmore just a little bit behind in 4th. Turning in a good race is the Red Bull, and there goes Hamilton for second. Will Ford have another go? No, he will not. And yeah, that's 2 AI drivers up at the head of the field. Verstappen leading, Hamilton in second. And so we'll have to see if the conditions change at all, as we're just about at the halfway point of this Dutch Grand Prix. Presented by our friends at Rampage Coffee Company. Again, friendly reminder, any order at rampagecoffee.com. If you use the code 5198RACING, that'll get you an extra 10% off at checkout. And checkout is exactly what Max Verstappen's looking to do to the rest of the field. 8.8 seconds, the gap between himself and Lewis Hamilton in second. Now it's up over 9 seconds. As we see, Cudmore making a move on Ford. And that is through the end of Sector 1, so that's the, the Slutemaker curve in Shevlak. So the Red Bull making moves on the sister car. We'll see if those two continue to battle. But for now, it looks like Darcy Cudmore has 3rd position. So again, turning in a good drive here is Darcy Cudmore in the Red Bull. We talked a little bit about it in qualifying. He's had good qualifying results, just hasn't necessarily translated to race conditions, as he gets a little bit squirrely out of that turn. I just about hit him with the broadcaster jinx. But it looks like the Red Bull's going to hold on here through the Lyondike turn. And now the interesting question here, of course, under safety car conditions, what kind of life will those intermediate tires have? So that'll be an interesting thing to find out as we're on to lap 19 now. 9.5 seconds the gap between Verstappen and Hamilton. Darcy Ford another 2.5 seconds adrift in third. And let's try and go down the field a little bit. Let's find some activity if we can. We'll go down to Ireland in 6th, trying to track down Cody Cudmore, who's just a little bit over a second ahead of him on the track. Ireland running 6th, trying to track down Cody Cudmore in 5th. And again, we'll try and get some real-time race analysis as we go along. As I say, the biggest question here will be in terms of what kind of tire life those intermediates will have. And again, I will try and find the answer here as we briefly hit a yellow in sectors 1 and 2. But right now, it's looking like the intermediate tire is still the tire of choice. Looks like it hasn't quite moved on to full wet conditions just yet. So Dan Cudmore not quite catching the field maybe the way he thought. As we're now on to lap number 20. And again, things have kind of gotten procedural in this race, it has to be said. But that's just sort of the conditions dictating that as much as anything else. As again, we remain with this battle. It's arguably the closest battle on the track, unless we go up one spot to find Cody Cudmore trying to track down Darcy Ford for 4th. That lead at the head of the field, Verstappen up to, oh no, Darcy Cudmore is out, and we've got ourselves another safety car. And so I think it may have hit a lap late, but that broadcaster jinx unfortunately did claim Darcy Cudmore in the end. Or maybe it was the wet conditions. To make myself feel a little bit better, I'm going to go with that. Meanwhile, full safety car conditions, Dan Cudmore into the pit lane first. And he switched to the intermediate. And let's see, Verstappen onto another set of intermediates, so it doesn't look like the conditions have changed quite enough to warrant the full wet tire. So this is our second full safety car of the race, as Alonso picks up a 5-second penalty for ignoring the yellow flag. Safety car waiting to pick up Dan Cudmore there, as the majority of the field is in pit lane here now. As it stands, Verstappen is out in the lead. Interesting strategy here from Ford, Cudmore, and Ireland. They're staying out for now. We'll have to see if they come in this time around to get another set of intermediates. But as we've got another break in the action, we will go ahead and take another break on this side. And again, we'll be back in about 30, well, we'll be back in a little bit as we get the safety car progressing. We're looking at probably another 3 laps here. And so, again, as a friendly reminder, we announced this a little bit earlier, but for those who missed it, we are expanding the operation a little bit in the Canadian E-Motorsports network. Whether it's a one-off or something a little bit more remains to be seen, but we've got something in the pipeline. Have a watch.
Rick Mears, the winner of the 63rd 500-mile race. Brian Hunter-Ray has his first Indianapolis 500-mile race win. Elio Calvario Brantini becomes a 3-time winner of the Indianapolis 500. Flag for Bobby Unser. Mario Andretti, winner of the next. Simon Massimo sweeps him up the lane. Cornelius Cole, winner of the 19th. Scott Dixon from New Zealand drives. Little Al wins by tenths of a second. He will win the 100 Indianapolis. Tony Kanaan, the 12th time is the Julio Castroneves win. Indianapolis 500.
That was great. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I want to do that again so bad.
Just one of the greatest days of my life.
All is good in the world when you win this race.
And we're back with coverage of tonight's Rampage Coffee Company Dutch Grand Prix, round 7 of this year's Canadian E-Motorsports Network F1 All-Star Racing Series. As you can see, we're still under safety car conditions as we begin lap number 23. Max Verstappen leads this one, Darcy Ford in second, Cody Cudmore third in the Ferrari, Jared Ireland fourth in the Haas, Lewis Hamilton there in fifth, just ahead of Michael Dimitrov in sixth in his Williams. And a little bit of an interesting strategy happening for our human runners toward the head of the field, where the majority of the field stayed out or went into pit lane to get another set of intermediates. Those four, Darcy Ford, Cody Cudmore, Jared Ireland, and Michael Dimitrov, they've all stayed out to try and make those intermediate tires work for them. 10 laps in the difference, so we'll have to see what the wear is like. I'm trying to get some answers as to how long those tires will last. But kind of promised carnage in the early going, and we've seen it here tonight as we got 5 retirements, most recently Darcy Cudmore, as he went off at around the Shivlak turn, I do believe, running in third place, excuse me, at the time. But then had his race ruined as the safety car will be in this lap. And again, with the conditions being as they are, it looks like it's kind of a consistent rain here. Not really improving, not really getting any better, as Ireland picks up a 5-second penalty for colliding with Cody Cudmore. And so that could do some damage to the Haas driver's race as well. And there you see Ford right on the rear wing of Max Verstappen. So we'll watch the restart from Ford's perspective, and he's going to see Verstappen take off. Ireland with another 5-second penalty. Those two getting kind of tangled up off the restart. Back to green flag racing now, lap 24. Verstappen, as you can see, pulling away. Gap already up to just about 1.5 seconds through the Hugenholtz. And again, Ford, one of those drivers who came into pit lane under safety car conditions, so the new set of intermediates significantly fresher than those of Darcy Ford, as well as Cody Cudmore and Jared Ireland battling for third and fourth. Although with the penalties they've picked up, 10 seconds apiece, those two are looking at 13th and 14th right now overall until things spread out. As we're just about at 2/3 distance here now. We'll go back to Max Verstappen at the head of the field. Lead already back up to 3.1 seconds. Certainly the improved grip on the intermediate tires, the new set that he's got, certainly helping him to pull away here on this opening lap after the safety car. So maybe a miscalculation on the part of those 4 drivers who stayed out. But ultimately, track position is important as well on a track like Zandvoort as we go on to lap 25. And again, for Darcy Ford in the championship race, this can only help him here as well. As again, that leads up to about 4 seconds now as Hamilton on track has gotten past Ireland. And he got that done in the Gerlach, I would say, or even the Tarzan, that opening turn of this Zandvoort circuit. Now Hamilton feverishly on the trail of Cody Cudmore, trying to get into third. And of course, Cudmore with a 10 seconds of penalties anyway, so Hamilton's a net third on track as it is. And so for Cody Cudmore, this isn't where the battle is right now. Again, just hoping for the field to spread out a little bit more, as Ireland, I think he may have gotten caught up in something else here. As we've got a yellow in sector 2. Is Ireland going to continue? Yes, he is, but he's at the back of the field down in 14th now. The last of our drivers still running. As we'll go down the field a little bit, we'll check in on Dan Cudmore very quickly, trying to get up onto the back of Nikita Mazepin and the other Haas, trying to get into 11th. And Mazepin trying to block the inside, Cudmore trying to go outside. He'll have room to do so through the Tarzan, and that looks like a nicely executed move, and indeed, the Alfa Romeo makes it stick. So, well done, textbook move there with the wider berth as we got a yellow in sector 1. And it looks like a Ferrari off. I think that's Cody Cudmore who's gotten tangled up here. And indeed, he's gotten it all wrong. That's out of the Hugenholtz. And as he tries to catch up, he's one of those guys who stayed out. He took that gamble on the intermediates, and I think that grip might be starting to disappear. So that could spell trouble for the likes of Darcy Ford and Michael Dimitrov. Ireland had the same thing happen, I do believe. So it's going to be a matter of control here for Ford and Dimitrov, running 2nd and 4th respectively. You'd have to think they're absolutely going to be feeling it here now. Ford through the Lyondike turn. And he's going to stay out again, maybe hoping for one more safety car. That would obviously give him an opportunity to get onto even fresher intermediate tires than the leader, Max Verstappen. Lead up to about 5.5 seconds now. As we're on to lap 27, it'll be 3/4 distance by the time our drivers hit the line. And again, let's just see where the battles are happening right now. Let's go down to back to Andy Hurdle here in 7th place, trying to track down Gasly for 6th. Making their way up the Spoonmaker curve now through Shivlak. And trying to get side by side there was Hurdle, but not quite close enough to Gasly to pull it off. But that gap staying relatively in a decent spot here for Hurdle, 0.4 of a second, give or take. Maybe lost a little coming out of turn 10. And of course, still wet conditions, so no DRS just yet. Although it has to be said that it looks like it might be letting up just a little bit here. Definitely see some rain still on the screen and in the air, so to speak. And definitely a bit of spray coming off the back of the virtual cars, of course. As we're now on to lap 28. And again, it's Verstappen in the lead right now, 6.5 seconds up on Darcy Ford, but he's going to have a challenge on his hands, and in fact, he's got one right now in the form of Lewis Hamilton right behind. As we got another yellow in Sector 1, I think that might be Ireland who was affected again. Certainly not the night he's wanted to have. He got himself up into 4th. but ultimately the grip with those tires didn't hold on by the looks of things. And speaking of hanging on, that's what Ford's trying to do here with Hamilton draped all over the back of him. And Hamilton made a move on Ford right about here before, but Ford's going to have the advantage going into the stadium section. And he's able to hold on once again. But again, Hamilton just bearing down. What a great aerial view this is. Ford powering his way through that Lyondike turn. Hamilton, let's see if he's got the straight line speed to try something into Tarzan. As we got a yellow in sector 1. And it's a virtual safety car, so this could turn into a full safety car potentially, depending on what happens. I think that was Cody Cudmore who might have gotten kind of turned around there out of Hugenholtz, and indeed it was. Ireland with yet another 5-second penalty, so his night just kind of compounding. As we go back up to the head of the field, where we'll find Max Verstappen about to lap Cody Cudmore now, after that adventure through the Hugenholtz. And again, while things are slowed down just a little bit, we'll go ahead and give you a little more track information on this Zandvoort circuit as we're back to green flag racing. So we talked about the origins of the name of the Tarzan corner. A few more that certainly have some interesting names as well. The Hans Erst, as we see Max Verstappen coming through there now, as Ford's actually closing the gap a little bit, certainly the lap traffic helping. And Verstappen has dispatched Cody Cudmore now. But again, back to some of the stuff that we were about to talk about. Again, some of the turn names. We mentioned the Tarzan corner and its origins, as mentioned. Next, they come through the Gerlach corner, which is named for a driver named Wim Gerlach, who rolled his Porsche actually during a sports car race at this very track back in 1957 at that sort of mini right-hander, but he wasn't wearing a seatbelt at the time, so he crushed his head between the car and the track. So, certainly not the image that you want to have as you're on lap number 30 now of this race. And then, as mentioned during the ride along at the beginning, they come up to the Hugenholtz next, which is that sort of side winding hairpin with the heavy banking on it. That's named for a former track director, John Hugenholtz Sr. And then they go through what's in Dutch known as the Hunsrug, as we got a yellow in sector 3. Looks like a Haas having an issue there. And I think that might be Ireland again, and we'll see who's going into pit lane. And yeah, Ireland has decided to just call it a night here, so that is 6 retirements from this race now, as we're about to begin lap number 30, or 31, I should say. As we're still following Darcy Ford, 7.4 seconds back of our leader, Max Verstappen. Yellow in sector 1, as looks like we got somebody trying to rejoin here. Not 100% sure what was going on. And anyway, we'll sort that out in a little bit. So this section of the track that you just saw Ford and Hamilton coming through, that's known as the Hunsrug, or Hunsridge in English. And that's named for Koos Huns, who's a former chairman of the Royal Dutch Motorcycle Association. And then after that, once they get to the top of that hill, they come into the Slutemaker turn, which is named for a former Dutch driver named Rob Slutemaker, better known as just Slut, not to make it sound dirty or anything. But certainly things did not go his way back in 1979 as he crashed his Chevy Camaro during a Trophy of the Dunes touring car race, as his car spun on a patch of oil and collided with a kind of a course car or a marshal car that was kind of parked right alongside that track. And then we talked about that stadium section of the track a little bit earlier, as that is now the Hans Erst section, or Hans Erst Bocht in Dutch. Another former track director, similar to John Hugenholt Sr. And finally, they go into that heavily banked R.E. Leyendijk turn. R.E. Leyendijk, certainly a more familiar name to the North American audience. Two-time winner of the Indy 500 back in 1990 and 1997. So sort of fitting that we have the final turn of this track named for him, as we've officially announced the Indy 250 here tonight. Meanwhile, this battle continues here for second and third between Ford and Hamilton. Ford, he's hanging on, trying to get that extra point. Speaking of extra points, let's see who's got the fastest lap, and it is Darcy Ford right now, but oh boy, DRS opening up. I think that's enabled here again. I saw that rear wing open up for Hamilton, and Hamilton's up in a second. I think things are turning here at the very end. And once they get to the line, there'll be 4 laps to go. Track evidently dried up enough to get that to happen. And there you see the rear wing open as we got a yellow in sector 2. That is a Ferrari who's kind of thrown off. I'm not sure if that's Cody Cudmore or Charles Leclerc. We'll find out in a matter of seconds. Cody Cudmore is your answer, ladies and gentlemen, coming out of turn 10. As Gasly falls down into 8th, Dan Cudmore down in 8th as Cudmore ran wide. And that was out of that turn 9 and 10 section, I do believe, or going into it, I should say. So Cudmore, who briefly was up in 7th, down into 10th now. As we'll fire up the field here a little bit to check in on Andy Hurdle. Once again, he's got Dimitrov behind him. Half a second behind on track, but Dimitrov's got a 5-second penalty to contend with, which would put him in net 10th. So Hurdle turning in a comfortable top 5 position here as they continue on in the wet conditions, although they are gradually improving as you start to see some rear wings opening up, DRS coming back into play. And there's Hurdle coming through the Hans Erst section, basically the leader in a bit of a chain here as we got a yellow in sector 3. That's an Alfa Romeo off. Is that Dan Cudmore? It sure is, as it looks like he's gone wide through 10 and he's into the wall. Cudmore just not getting the grip quite right there. And he made a couple of timing boards pay for it. And Cudmore will try and regain his place here. He's fallen down to 12th. Meanwhile, Dimitrov down to 11th. I wonder if he's had an issue, or indeed he's gone into pit lane onto soft tires. And you wonder if there's a gamble to be made here with just 2 laps to go with the track drying up. Looks like it'd be just enough for those intermediates to hold on. And speaking of, how long have Darcy Ford's been on? 22 laps. Oh, brother, this is going to be potentially disastrous here for the AlphaTauri, but we'll have to see if he can hold on for another 2 laps, give or take. Certainly has a significant gap between himself and Leclerc. Had this happened a few laps earlier, I think you'd see Ford coming in for the soft tires, but I think with 2 laps to go, I think you're just riding it out if you're in that AT. Max Verstappen certainly just letting it ride here. That lead up to 11 seconds over Lewis Hamilton. So the 2AI is at the head of the field. And again, Darcy Ford there in 3rd. He'll maintain a rather healthy championship lead going into round number 8, which is, I believe, at Monza. We'll just confirm that. Indeed, it is Monza next week, another one of our classic tracks here in Formula One. But right now, the focus for Max Verstappen and the rest of the field is just getting around here to get through this race safely. As again, we've seen 6 retirements overall. Just 13 remaining. And Verstappen making his way comfortably around the Ari Lyondike for the second to last time. He'll see the white flag this time around. And we are on to the final lap of tonight's Dutch Grand Prix. And certainly Max Verstappen, as soon as the weather changed, he took over and proven to be the absolute class of the field in these conditions. As again, you see a couple of raindrops still on the camera. We'll watch the rest of the lap from his perspective as he comes through the Hunsrug for the last time. Then through that little Slotemaker bend, now into Skivlak. Just basically keeping it on the road here to this point. Through that master right-hander for the last time. Turns 9 and 10 coming up. Again, it's a relatively quick lap here at Zandvoort. And it looks like, yeah, Verstappen, barring some kind of an act of God, is going to hold on here. As we'll bring it back to broadcast view. And we'll go ahead and just watch the Red Bull into victory lane here, presumably. Just a couple of turns away from it. And Verstappen through the Lyondike for the last time. And onto the start-finish straight. No Dutchies, or nobody was passing the Dutchie on the left or right-hand side in the wet conditions. Max Verstappen wins tonight's Dutch Grand Prix. For the AI driver, that'll be his first win of the season. Lewis Hamilton crosses the line second. Darcy Ford, he gets those intermediate tires to go 25 laps, and he holds on to third. So great run for Darcy Ford at the very end. As Leclerc comes home fourth. Hurdle looking to hold on to fifth. Indeed he does. Gasly right behind him. Kimi Räikkönen seventh. Alonso right there in eighth. Nikita Mazepin will grab some points here. At least he was going to. Dimitrov up into ninth now on those soft tires. And again, that was a late stop from Michael Dimitrov. But again, it was Max Verstappen who wound up being the class of the field. If you recall, he started in 11th in tonight's race on account of a couple of penalties. But ultimately, safety cars and changing conditions, that's what made the difference for him. As we'll just stay on board with third place Darcy Ford here the rest of the way. And driver of the day, Kimi Räikkönen. Eliminated in the first qualifying session and got himself up into seventh. Aided by a few retirements, it has to be said, but certainly, you know, it's just a matter of finishing a race like this one as you see Verstappen, Hamilton, and Ford on the podium. And it's the Dutchman raising the trophy in his homeland. And then, again, whatever kind of legal name you want to give the liquid that's being sprayed here, we'll go with Prosecco, I guess, if it's not directly from the Champagne region of France. And so we'll take a quick look at the final results here now. Again, Verstappen wins comfortably, 11.5 seconds the final gap between himself and Hamilton. Darcy Ford rounds out the podium in third, gains the point for fastest lap. Leclerc finishes fourth in the Ferrari. Andy Hurdle rounds out the top five in the McLaren. Gasly comes home sixth in the AlphaTauri. Räikkönen seventh for Alfa Romeo. Alonso eighth for Alpine. Williams is next up with Dimitrov in ninth. Nikita Mazepin rounds out the top 10 in the Haas. Russell in the Williams is 11th. Dan Cudmore in the Alfa Romeo 12th. Cody Cudmore 13th in the Ferrari, the last of the active runners. Then we get the retirements of Ireland, Darcy Cudmore, Daniel Ricciardo, Sebastian Vettel, Jason Butler, and Ivan Reynolds. So, certainly plenty of carnage here tonight. But that race is over, so we'll take one last commercial break and we will set up round 8. races done here in the Canadian E-Motorsports Network F1 All-Star Racing Series. Next up, we head to another one of the classic iconic tracks in Formula One, the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, or better known as Monza, for round number 8 as things get even tighter and tighter in the championship. That race will go down next Tuesday night, February 8th. Coverage will begin, as it always does, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Canadian E-Motorsports Network YouTube channel. And of course, as a friendly reminder, we can't do this without our friends at Rampage Coffee Company, so as a courtesy, rampagecoffee.com, you got 10% off as a friendly reminder if you use the code 519E-RACING. So that basically wraps it up here for tonight. We're just down to 3 races remaining, and you know, the championship battles are just getting that much better as we get closer to the end. So for the Canadian E-Motorsports Network team, this is Jordy Carraher signing off, and if you liked what we were able to put together here tonight, feel free to leave us a comment or like and subscribe, as we certainly appreciate all the support that we get from those who watch. And, you know, we'd like to grow this operation here a little bit more. So, again, we hope you've all enjoyed it, and we'll see you